designing the app. I enjoyed going in core data and looking over what we did before in the previous week and actually being able to apply that and make like a real-time functioning app, something that will persist over time. Uh, this is kind of like our first look into being in a real environment of making an app. Um, and then things that I wish that we could have done would be adding machine learning. I read up on it for a couple hours and saw that if we literally scanned the receipt, we could have automatically imported the information that we wanted to be added there. But that's something that's a little advanced. But for now, I like what we did.
Yeah, and that's our app.
Awesome, guys. Looks great. Couple of questions, and I'm going to go through and give you guys feedback as we go as well. Generally, I'll try to tailor the feedback more to like your presentation rather than the code itself because I'm not an expert. I don't know a whole lot more than you guys do, so I don't have a lot of say in that like an instructor would. But just general, I think presentation feedback is always helpful, especially because this might be the first time that you guys have ever done something like this and presented it before. So I love the app. I already commented in the channel, but the view containment looks really good. I think the way that you guys have it structured is really simple, really straightforward, really user-friendly, looks really sharp. As far as commenting kind of on Donovan's point of wanting to incorporate machine learning, there are different frameworks that you can implement that can scan like a QR code or a barcode and things like that and can add all that information like you were saying. And so, while you guys are working on this app this week, you've gotten 4 days worth of features and implementation. And now you can take this going forward and run with it and really develop it out, add those extra features, make it look really sharp. And then before you know it, you have something that is viable for the App Store. And all of a sudden you have a really cool app on your portfolio that's even better than what you already have. So I think going forward, you guys should definitely keep to working on this, come back to it after we've applied different things and learn more about frameworks and CocoaPods and things like that in the next couple of weeks for sure. I would have liked to hear more about kind of your guys' experience during the week. So how you kind of overcame different issues that came along your way. I guess I will ask this right away as far as and I'll probably ask everybody this, but kind of working in tandem with a backend and other developers, how did you guys handle that situation? Was there anything hard about it? Did you use everything the backend provided? How did that go?
It was a lot of talking back and forth, I feel like. There was things that wouldn't pop up and then like something would work and then later on it wouldn't work. And then, a lot of, bug fixing and stuff. That's what it felt like, just going back and forth and trying to communicate.
Yeah, but also our backend guy was really like fast and super great at getting the backend like up and running. Like he had it done by Monday, so we had the entire week to basically test the app and make sure everything was working. So that was super helpful of him to just have it done that fast.
Cool. Yeah, I think you guys will find that there are two ends of the spectrum, especially in things like Build Week, where some people have a great backend and it's ready to go by Monday, and other people, maybe you only got your backend last night, and there's a lot of scramble and trying to reconfigure everything to match that, and that's a hard gamble to play with Build Week. So no matter what circumstance you guys were in, I hope that you tried to apply some of those networking methods, and if there were gaps or things that you couldn't do, we have skills like Firebase where we can use mock data and simulate kind of what would happen if there was a backend as well. So all in all, great job, guys. I think it was an awesome app. One last question. This is from Alex, but did you guys have a UX designer on this product?
No, we didn't have one. So I went through and designed everything over the weekend for the whole team. And so I just scrambled together and like threw whatever I could together.
Very cool. I think you did you post some mock-ups? I think I definitely saw some mock-ups.
Yeah, I went and made the onboarding, got us all our mock-up stuff for the whole team, so we knew what we were going to be doing that week.
Very cool. Will you post that in iOS9 so that everyone can see it? I think that would be an awesome resource to look at, and kind of going forward as all of you guys make your apps, kind of design them with the end in mind of what they will look like, and I think you'll have a better structure of how you want to.
And you can use like Figma and stuff and Adobe XD and then just scrap some stuff together and then you know what you're doing.
Sweet. Yeah, we'd love to see those. So if you post those when you get a second, that'd be great. Okay. Good job, guys. Looks great. Next up, we have Kids Fly.
All right. Looks like it's me and Alex. Okay. So you want us to just kind of go over what the original intention of the app was?
Yeah, kind of discuss the pitch. So what was the goal of the app? And then kind of talk about what your MVP was and how you guys went about trying to accomplish that.
Okay. Well, originally, it was supposed to help parents kind of, I guess, like when you check into an airport and you're kind of onboarding, a lot of times, especially if you have like a lot of children, it can be a bit of a hassle as you're dealing with all the minutia, all the details. And so it was supposed to be in the same way that Uber kind of pairs up drivers with passengers, it would kind of link up travelers with staff to kind of make sure their trip goes as smoothly as possible. And so we had, I think Alex did a pretty cool job of creating, and actually, you know what, let me pull up the app too so we can see it. I will say ahead of time, we ran into an issue. We weren't able to get a working model working completely. So there is that. But I do think that as far as like the progress we made, well, let me show you and then you can see. So I thought this was a pretty cool model that Alex created to, kind of link up whenever a traveler would create a trip to the airport, it would immediately kind of pair it up. And I'm not entirely sure how this works as well. It's actually a relatively new concept to me. I knew Spencer linked it up in a YouTube video and I watched that, but I thought it was pretty cool. Just the different combinations and relationships you'd have with people. When we do run the app, and let me show you how it looks like. You sign up, you put in your number, your airport, and then you sign in. And what it's supposed to do is, as you go in, you fill out the details. It shows you your luggage type, flight connection, pretty standard stuff. Number of kids. And yeah, it's just a way to kind of streamline the process, make sure that all the information gets to the appropriate parties at the right time. But the issue that we were running into is that when we do enter all the data fields, it just immediately crashes. And so that was kind of spending time searching for unknown unknowns and trying to figure out what was wrong. That was I know Alex spent a lot of time trying to figure out what went wrong, and we couldn't figure it out exactly, but this is as far as we came. I will say one thing that kind of helped out, at least initially, and something I learned from Build Week 1 was kind of sketching out the idea in Figma. This is something I learned from Luckman. I don't know if you guys met him before. Very smart guy. And it kind of helped kind of lay out the work for what needed to be done next. I think one thing I could have done personally better is I could have, like at certain times, it was unclear what work I needed to do. And there were times where I would repeat work that Alex had already done. So I think it would have been good if at the very beginning, Alex showed me how GitKraken has an option to set up Trello-like boards, which is pretty cool. And so in that way, we could always keep the clarity of work between us. Like it would always let us know what it is that we have to do and don't have to do. So that's something I think I need to work on. One thing that I was particularly kind of proud of, just like a very small thing, if I can find it. And that's when I was setting up the traveler controller, and I was setting up the this thing right here, the set value. I never realized that when you make a request using the HTTP method, that there's literally like a Wikipedia page of just, I don't want to say hundreds, but many, many, many different field values that you can do. And so I like, for some reason, I just thought it was like a JSON thing. I never realized that there's literally like hundreds of different requests. So that was something new that I learned. Anything you'd like to add, Alex? I know you worked a lot on the core data part.
No, I think if we could go back and do it differently, I think I'd probably spend a little bit more time on Friday, like planning out, not just kind of like what the app should look like, but actually planning out kind of like what Andrew said. We started using GitKraken's glow boards, which are like a Trello board. But we didn't use that until like Thursday, where we planned out like everything that wasn't yet done with the app. And we just literally went like one by one, like, okay, the fetch results controller still hasn't been created. Like, we still need to create the CRUD methods just for core data stack. That needs to link up with the server and with whatever trips that each traveler has that it fetches. It needs to be able to do a check and see what it doesn't have in its persistence and add any of the trips that aren't already there. I wish we'd have, like, if we would have done that Friday or even Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday were kind of like, we were a little bit lost and things were a little bit chaotic on what we need to do. If we did that, I think we could have had a fully functional app by, I mean, at least user interface wise. Like, I think we could have gone through every one of the screens, because we would have had 2 extra days to kind of work through some of the bugs that we didn't hit until Thursday night. But overall, I had a really good experience with Andrew. We pair programmed a lot on networking and core data, and kind of learned a lot on our own on how to debug. So that was my takeaway from this build week.
Nice. I love the mockups. I think it looks great. My main question for you guys here is I know that you're encountering issues with like authentication and getting into the back end. If you were to take out that view and have the user just directly go into the app without having to sign in, would your core data function? Would you be able to do everything just locally?
So everything was working until we added the sign up. Originally, this we made this like the initial like entry point for the app, like the initial view controller for when you launch the app. Before that, you could go in and kind of see. I mean, you weren't able to add any trips, but you were able to see like a traveler that the iPhone or that the persistence already had in store, and then it would have a table view for all the trips that were added or in that person's thing. So like, we didn't run into any issues with core data as of yet. The problem is once we got authentication back, and we haven't gotten a bear token yet, but once we got that back and we added that, our problem is on that segue to travel tab bar controller. It's giving us trouble with segueing over to like that tab bar controller. And that's what, like, we spent close to an hour with Spencer Curtis or like earlier today, or like 30 minutes to an hour trying to fix that, and we can't really figure out like what's going on. So we're meeting with them later this afternoon to see if we can fix that. And then, because I don't know, I liked the app and the experience, and I'd like to add it to my like GitHub, where you can put like 6 projects that you are proud of on your main profile page. I'd like to add this one to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the case too. And especially from like a presentation standpoint, you know, if you were to come to a scenario like this and it's a job instance, like someone's asking you to show off your work to an interviewer, you know, obviously you would want to show the full fleshed out content of the app and try to limit, you know, what's not working. So my suggestion for you is the next time you guys come to a place where you're like in a cramp and like you can't show off the full functionality of the app, and the main holdup is like authentication, just remove it. And that way you can show off the core features of the app, because I'm not super concerned about your sign up process. I'm more concerned about what does this app accomplish, because every app has a sign in, every app has some sort of authentication. It's going to be assumed and implied that, you know, people's information is going to be protected that way. But I would have much rather have seen the app really functioning at its like core, you know, functions, like what it needed to do, rather than you guys being stuck on the login, you know. So I think going forward, you know, either fix that or before a presentation, just omit it and then be able to show what the app can actually do just via core data and use those local persistence methods to show that, even if it's not connected to a backend. That's kind of the beauty of this week, now that you guys know core data, is that, you know, even if your app isn't connected to the internet, you can still have those changes persisted even without the internet. But I think it looks really great. I love the UI. I think there's a really clean look to it. You know, oftentimes I will look at projects that are built in a short amount of time, and they'll have, and I'm sure you guys might have seen this today in like some of the web presentations this morning, but some of them are kind of choppy and the UI is a little bit block-like. And I think this looks really crisp and clean. And so if this is kind of the theme that you guys are going with in the app, I think it looks fantastic. So really great. Love the idea of the app. And yeah, like you said, Alex, I think fleshing it out with Spencer and trying to figure out those errors and getting this to a point where it's working is, a great portfolio piece that you could add. And all in all, great job, guys.
Hey, Mitch.
Yeah.
I was just going to give a short plug. Something I did a lot on my labs project was get to a good place. And I liked saving local copies of my app that I know were in a good spot. And I feel like, especially with build weeks and with labs, it's kind of an easy, low-tech thing to do. You know what I mean? Like once everything else is working, you can kind of have a local copy that shows what you can do, and then you can kind of expand on that. You know what I mean? And you have a jumping off point, but you know that you can always go back to that local copy. So especially with build weeks, that might be something to kind of a good, easy, safe practice to kind of practice,
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Yep, I agree. Because, and the last thing you'd want to do in kind of a simulation standpoint is if the backend had crashed without you realizing it, and then you go to try to reconnect with it, because that will often happen with these Heroku backends that the web developers use, is they kind of sleep over time. And so, yeah, being able to showcase your work in a completely local sense is a very powerful, easy way to approach, anytime you show off your app, like Jonah was saying. So, but great job, guys. Any feedback that you guys have for them, go ahead and leave in the iOS9 channel. Let's go ahead and move on to RVB&B.
All right, we actually recorded our presentation because I thought that's what you meant by recording it. But we're just going to play that, and I want to preface this by saying we also had trouble with the API controller, but this was definitely a more enjoyable build week than my first, maybe because I just knew more what to do. And in the video, I explain a lot. So does Brian. So, my name is Austin Potts.
Hey, my name is Brian Vilches, and we are the RVB iOS developers. For the first portion of this demo, I'm going to let my partner Austin take over.
Thanks, Brian. Finding a nice area for your RV to park in places unfamiliar can be a bit of a gamble. As an RV owner, I want the ability of freedom along with certainty. Freedom to go wherever, whenever, with the certainty that I will always be able to find a location for my RV campsite. With RVB&B, you can not only safely reserve a campsite with certainty, you can also list your land as a landowner to generate flexible income for your unused land. All you simply need to do is come to the login screen, and we do not have an API controller working. We ran into some errors, so until then we're going to use mock data so it looks like a functional app. So again, if you had the data connected, you could simply log in. It will display that information, and these will be settings for your profile along with notification settings, distance, and all of that. They'll be returned from the data. You can create a profile, enter your name and all and such. Again, once we have the data connected, it will save and it will take you to your profile with, again, these settings. And this is actually your profile that you have just created. And you can hit this unwind segue to take you back to this page if you prefer to do otherwise. You can hit cancel. You can also view the land listed by owners. You can click on whichever one you'd like, and it will show the location, the landowner, and the contact that they're available at. You can schedule a stay when you're logged in, and it will send you a notification. As a landowner, you can also list your land. Depending on where you're at, you can type in your location, you can add the image, and you can save a listing once you're logged in. Let's place you an overview of our app so far. Again, once we get the API controller up and running, it'll be a lot easier for us to display a fully functional app. I'm going to now pass over to Brian. He built a really cool custom control for our login, and he can explain how he went about that.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Austin. I'm going to pull it up real quick. All right, as you can see on the Xcode project, this is the code that I used to create the login screen. Let me just run the app real quick. Unfortunately, at the time, we're using two different versions of Xcode, so this is a different project, but it is in the same repo. As you can see in the simulator, the app runs. The first thing it does is it runs the text field should return. So that allows us to use the return key without having to actually touch the text field. There is a sign up page where you can input all your information. And you can put an email, your name and username and a password. And just to do a quick demonstration, the cancel button does change once you hit return. Once you hit enter on the last text field, it does send you back to the login. And as you can see, it does populate the login screen. That way you don't have to type it in there, and you can just hit the login button and it'll take you to the profile. All right. Thank you. And
now we'll do our 3 questions. I'll go through mine first. A feature, a code block that I had a problem with, and that I was personally, I guess my first question is a feature I was proud of, and a code block that I got past would be the core data and API controller, if I could have got that up and running after multiple failures, trying everything I possibly could. I'm still going to debug, as Brian and I are going to continue this project after Build Week, because we were hopeful we could build a nice app for our portfolio. My second question is the most difficult part of the project, again, would be the API controller and trying to understand how to go about all the proper methods. I really had a problem with just going over the actual functions for the API controller and stuff like that, particularly the update on server and things like that, cause confusions. For my third and final question, I would go about this project differently by using mock data in the beginning and testing our endpoints with something such as Insomnia, which is a big overlook on my part. Instead of building out fully fledged models, I would have used something a lot smaller just to test that it was working. And now Brian can go on with his 3 questions.
all right. So because I focused mainly on the user interface, the hardest part that I struggled with was creating the custom view, only because it's in a different file. So communicating with the view controller required a little bit more of researching and that involved using delegates. It did take a little over a day or 2 more than what I wanted to, but unfortunately, I came to realize that I could have done it a little bit differently. I could have done it all inside the view controller. So in these next couple of days, as we continue to work on the project, I will be moving all of this code directly inside the view controller instead of doing a custom view.
And that's what we have so far.
Awesome, guys. Awesome. It looks great. I got the chance to kind of look through the project with these guys over the week, and yeah, it's tough trying to figure out how to configure your networking methods, call them in the right places, pass that information from view to view. I think a general idea that I think a lot of you have realized this week is that minimalizing your work, minimalizing your views is the better way to go, right? Like the fewer code that we can write, the fewer amount of view controllers that we can have is going to accomplish more for us. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we want to practice like massive view controller, that kind of concept of writing a ton of code into one file. But I think what you guys will come to learn is that if you can simplify your app to be navigable and simple for the user, it will also be simple and relatively simple for you to write that out as you're planning out your app. So I think like you guys said, going forward here, there's a lot of things that you would kind of consolidate and do differently. And so that's like the beauty of Build Week, is that you go through all these complex issues and then you get to come to the end of it and you're like, yeah, if we were to restart, we would do it 100% different. And that's kind of the beauty of programming, is being able to refactor what you worked on and do things in a different way than you initially thought was the best way. I love the UI. I think it looks really sharp. I think also be able to, because Brian, you talked about how the hardest part for you was creating the custom view. And I think for employers, knowing that you can programmatically create elements, that you're not entirely reliant on Interface Builder to build out those elements, that's a really awesome skill to have in your arsenal. And so I think all of you guys need to keep practicing those skills. We might not go forward writing a lot of programmatic UI in the next couple of weeks, but like find opportunities to do that, find opportunities to stylize your work and keep those up. I did have a question for you guys, but it'll probably come back. But all in all, it looks really sharp. One thing I want all of you guys to try to steer clear of when you're kind of presenting your work is try to rephrase the negatives in a way that demonstrates the difficulty or how you might have overcome the challenge. Because I think in a lot of circumstances, someone will be like, unfortunately, we weren't able to do this. Unfortunately, this happened, so we couldn't do anything.
That's why we try to make our presentation like as sharp as possible, just to kind of get that past. That's also why we recorded it, so we didn't kind of mess up on things that we knew we might mess up on.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the recording. I think it's a really surefire way to make sure you're showing off exactly what you want to say. But when you guys present to employers or other people, or you're just showing off your app, try to rephrase those difficulties or things that you didn't get to do and say, like, we encountered this struggle where the back-end endpoints were very scattered. So we went about it this way to kind of handle them. Or, you know, passing data from this view to this view to this view was our biggest challenge. And the way that we kind of started to fix that problem is by this. And, you know, don't try to sell yourself out and say like, unfortunately, this couldn't work, but try to find like the positives out of it. And, you know, that way the employer is less focused on, I don't know, less focused on what didn't happen, and they're more focused on what you did to make it happen. But yeah, I think you guys did a really good job with the presentation. I love the recording, and it looked really sharp and good. Jonah and Hayden are in here now too. So if you guys ever have feedback, please hop in and let us know. And then everyone else, use the iOS9 channel to shout out to everyone for their work and what looks good and what you're proud of for them. It looks really sharp. Next up, we have Anywhere Fitness. I don't know if Taylor ever got in.
So Taylor's never in, but Alex sent me some demos that we can present. Just kind of watch and see what it looks like if you want. If not, we can just go ahead and skip over.
Cool. Maybe let's get through everybody, and then we'll do that at the very end.
Okay.
And then we can leave some feedback for her there too. It's also her birthday. So if everyone wants to message Alex and tell her happy birthday, I'm sure she would love that. Cool. We'll go ahead and skip Anywhere Fitness for right now. Let's move ahead to Calorie Tracker. I think that's, who is Calorie Tracker? This is the part where I get to go hunt you down. Let's see. Did we even, we did have a calorie tracker. Oh, it's Chore Tracker. I'm sorry, I misspelled it. Chore Tracker. This is Josh, if Josh is in here with us. Josh, are you there?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I didn't know you typoed that. I thought maybe we just got left out.
Sorry.
let me jump in a Zoom on the right machine. I've got you guys up on
We can skip ahead to Foodie Fun if you need a second.
Yeah, I'll need a second again.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, I misspelled the name of the project. Will and Steven, are you guys ready to rock with Foodie Fun? Hello?
Yeah, so I just needed a minute to, actually, maybe you're good.
Yeah, where is Will?
Will, he said he had something to do today, so he ended up, he left. So, I thought he talked to you guys, but I guess he didn't. So here, I'll share my screen. We didn't finish because we had a few problems also with the back end that we had that they changed at the last minute, and so we couldn't get things going. But I can show off what we had. So basically, Foodie Fun is basically a Yelp app that you can review and add the dish that you ate, so you can show it off online and show other people the things that you've eaten. So right here, which again you go to a view of all like your things. You have an add button to add your food and location. Like here, we had the location, the hours of operation, the rating, and then the review of like the food in the restaurant. So
Steven, you're cutting out a bit.
So Sorry. So, did everything that I just said?
It cut out a bit.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we're getting like ins and outs a little bit.
That we communicate. We did, which I feel like we did a very good job on was
I think we just lost him. That's fine. We will move ahead with the next ones. I'll give them feedback separately as well for sure. Josh, do you need a few more minutes to get set up, or are you good to go? Josh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, you good to go?
You'll probably see me on two different screens as well. Yeah, I was already in the app when you started talking, so I was like, man, I don't want to sign out and rerun this, so I was adding a sign out so I can show both screens.
All right, take it away.
Well, you might want to come back because this is going to take a minute to build, and that's part of my challenge is the larger this project got, the longer it took each time to build and run and troubleshoot. Actually, you know what? There's not enough changes. Let me just run it from the simulator. Oh, and Percy and I found out if we turned our video off, because we stayed in Zoom most of the time with each other, but if we had our video on, like build just took forever, everything took forever. So we had Chore Tracker. It was for tracking chores for families, having children, in the system where you could assign chores. We did not get everything completed. This ended up more complicated than it should have been because the back end was going to give us a separate login for children, so we didn't want them registering just. So you could basically go in and register, and once you get registered, you can log in. Oh, so just restarted.
Finished building.
I should have stopped building. All right. We had some difficulties with the back end. Honestly, we didn't get a finalized back end until like midday or late day Wednesday, and I'd already built all this stuff out. I wanted to show you guys the core data. So basically, you could log in, add children. I found this cute little picture of an angry child. And then there's default pictures if we didn't give a URL for the picture. We never got to getting the metrics. We have a tab view, so you can go over to chores. Kind of multitasking here. One of the parts I hadn't quite gotten to is this chore. If I do something over, maybe not to make it so complicated. You know, the description talked about having chore templates. And so the idea was you could come in here, select a template, which would then kind of fill a lot of this out, and then you could just select the due date and an assigned child if it wasn't already assigned. And if you didn't have a template you needed, my simulator doesn't always refresh great. You know, you can come here, put in a name, description notes, whether they're going to give picture evidence, how many points for that, and the periodicity or the period for that chore. And then these are, other than Angry Child, these two are mine, so I just use their name. And, you know, I could assign it to a particular child or not and save that. I have to say, I probably complicated things a bit with the way I did the core data, which just ran into a lot of how do I deal with relational data, and then how do I pull those things in on tables. It ended up, I guess a lesson learned is I need to really learn to scale back because I have a feeling usually how I want to do it, and it's very hard for me not to do it the way I think is the right way to do it. The next step in doing all this, I've been working on this up till now, is really I just needed to be able to select one of these, have that, but I'm having an issue with that delegation actually working. So I could select one, save it, get it into the chore list here. And there's also, if you log in as a child, it comes up, it comes up in a totally different dashboard where the children would just see their assigned chores, and then there was going to be another tab for them for points so that they could, we kind of trying to gamify it so they could see their siblings. They could see what their siblings' points were and colorize, any chores that were overdue, coming up on due. I was trying to implement that real quick so that I could switch quickly. But unfortunately, right now, I just basically have to stop the app and log in as a child. There's not much to show over there, so I'm basically done. I mean, I'll do that if you want to give some feedback, Mitchell.
Sure, yeah. I love the idea of the app. I think it's would be a really unique, awesome thing to have, like any parent would want to have as well. I like the way that you guys went about it. Kind of this, was that a scroll view when you were the templates and all the kind of specifications that you could apply to a chore? Is that a scroll?
That was actually, the top was a table view. And yeah, the top was a table view. And then everything below it. So the idea was when you clicked on the template, it would fill out the information on the bottom that was associated to the template. So the chore doesn't really have any name or description on it. They're just, the chore is basically when was it created, when is it done, when is it due. And the template holds the actual template information, which is, the name, the notes, the period, the points assigned to it. It just, I like that setup, but it just made all these relationships so much more complicated. And today I ran into, I don't know how long it took me. I was trying to do a map on an array on a child of an object. It doesn't work like I expected. Apparently it's an NS segment or an NS set, not a array. So obviously, if I never got to finally completing or creating the actual chore, we never really got to filling these out. Though the view controller files are pretty much stubbed out, all of them. I was really impressed with Percy. He started stubbing out all these different storyboards so that we could work on a storyboard separate from each other and not have merging conflicts. He and I had no merging conflict problems this go around. I loved that. That was such a frustration last time. And he just taught me better the workflow for us merging into development each and then merging back. And that was probably one of the things that was the greatest improved on this build week. I didn't have to rewrite things because of conflicts or losing work.
That's awesome. That's the biggest hang up of build weeks. I think all of you guys in your first build week ran into one, if not many, Git merge conflicts, and it sort of ruined your build week because there were a lot of circumstances where the files were corrupted or you were spent a whole afternoon trying to fix a certain merge issue and you got that much time taken away because of it. So I hope that one thing that's been ingrained in everyone is just, as a programmer, you are going to have to work autonomously on a project, but have it work in tandem with what other people are doing autonomously as well. And so you got to find out the ways to work with Git and not let it control you and you control it. And so I think that was one great way to go about it. I don't know if I would necessarily do that many storyboards. I do
Right.
That's a lot of storyboards. The general expectation is about 3 to 4 view controllers per storyboard. That's kind of a general guideline if you are going to split them up. The other alternative is if you had one main storyboard and it had 25 view controllers in it, that would be a mess. So I think this is a better alternative to that for sure. But the splitting up of the work looks really sharp. Core data, like Jordan said, it does look complicated, and I commend you for trying to tackle relationships, because that's a whole different can of worms to open up. And it looks like you wrangled it pretty well. But yeah, I think you guys will find that like sticking to what you know initially will help you in the long run rather than trying to tackle this whole big project with something that you've never done before, like core data relationships or a framework that you've never used. But all in all, good job taking a complicated situation and particularly a difficult backend and making some feasible functionality out of it. I think you guys did a really great job with that. So
we didn't implement any backend networking functionality. I started doing it with the login and authentication, and that just started breaking other things because I ahead of time had actually written my own functions and methods for creating new user IDs, and which took time that probably didn't need, didn't need to be taken. I probably should have just created 2 logins statically and done, like child and parent, and just leave it at that. But, so lesson learned.
Tough stuff. And that's the thing too, is that's why we want to teach you guys those Firebase skills, because if the backend crumbles and there's nothing to use from it, at least you have your own personal sort of backend to use for that. And so going forward, I hope that you guys will practice that more. Just out of curiosity, in the participants list, will you guys give me a yes or a no if you took advantage of Firebase at all this week, whether before or after your backend was available? All the light bulbs are going off. It's like, oh, our networking methods didn't work. And it's like, if you use Firebase, you guys will get into a much, much better spot. If your networking methods don't work on the back end, you got to make sure they work with anything at all first. So going forward here, use those Firebase skills. We taught you that for a reason. We wanted you to rely on it because it's a powerful tool and it helps you network. And going forward, practice those. I think that will help a lot. All right, cool. All right. And then let's move ahead. Last but not least, devlibs. Take it away, Cece or Mark.
Hey guys. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, awesome. I'm just gonna go ahead and share my simulator. You guys getting this? Okay, cool. So I'm Mark, and I worked with CC on the devlibs app. And the devlibs app is basically an app that plays on the game, like the Mad Libs game. You fill in words to kind of create a sentence or a story, or it always comes out funny. So, this is how the app looks when you open it. I'm gonna go ahead and log in. Well, sign up. Looks like I can't sign up because, that's right. I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. All right, so this is our dashboard. We're using a view controller with a table view, and it saved some of my past Mad Libs or devlibs, but I'm gonna go ahead and create a new one right now. So I'm going to choose C++ as a programming language. And now I'm going to choose code. Verb program, verb. I'm going to say fight. A verb ending in N, ing, I'm going to say programming. Verb ending in ed. I'm going to say
Mark, don't type anything in the next one.
Okay, debugged. And in this one, I'm not going to type anything. Well, guess I can't go past here. So, good catch, by the way, Cece. So for my second noun, I'm just going to say laptop. And I'm going to submit it. And I'm going to say C++ on my laptop as my title. And here's my Mad Lib. C++ on my laptop. I was programming in C++, trying to get all of my code to properly fight. However, nothing was actually programming. It was then I realized I hadn't even debugged my laptop. Doesn't make any sense, but it's great. And done. Done brings me back to my dashboard. So on the dashboard, you can use it to actually look at your previous work, your previous stories. I still haven't figured out how to get my story to make sense and sound better, but it's a work in progress. And that's pretty much our app. I think we had a really great build week because we had a really great group. We had a really great TL. I'm saying this because like my previous build week was, it felt like it was like iOS devs against web. Well, not even against, we weren't on the same team. We weren't on the same planet. We just happened to be working on the same project. And this group made me feel like we were working together. It was cohesive. And like, we didn't have like a UI person, but like we were so connected that CC was volunteered to like come up with the design, and everyone actually followed suit with the design that CC came up with. In terms of things that I'm proud of, so I know like you actually said a block of code or any kind of code. To be honest with you, I can't really say that my code was so great and wonderful. However, I'm glad that I kind of like remembered some of the things that we were taught early on in like the first month. So for instance, I didn't actually implement the code that made this work, but CC did. But having multiple storyboards connected to one view controller, I felt like that was like the biggest trick that we can actually like pull. And like we tried, well, at the time we were trying everything, and it just seemed like it was never gonna work.
That was all Mark's idea.
We took a break, and then like Cece comes back and she's like, we just gotta figure out the current state. And once she figured that out, like she came up with like an awesome idea to just figure out how we can actually make it determine what page it was on and how to act on every single page. Other than that, in terms of challenges, I got some things written down. In terms of challenges, so we did get connected to the back end. However, it was very challenging because initially it wasn't working, then it was working, then it wasn't working, then it wasn't working. But in the end, what we ended up doing is we did get our sign up and our sign up and login to actually work. We were trying to figure out how to get our template, which is what we called the words that you're actually putting in. We did try to get it connected to the back end. However, we were like battling insomnia. We were battling like core data. By the way, we knew nothing about what we were doing. We literally tried to figure it out line by line by line. And in the end, we sat with the TL and he was like, it's not you guys. I don't know what's going on. And it was like the greatest aha moment because we were like, oh my gosh, we might actually get core data and we might actually get this networking stuff. So that's pretty much what I have to say about this week. It was great working with CC because we actually did a lot of pair programming. Actually, almost all the programming we did was pair programming, and it made it like significantly easier to handle merge conflicts because we were just taking turns jumping from screen shares to screen shares. And I mean, that worked out well. She worked with my schedule. I worked with hers. I mean, it was really cohesive. So I think probably for me, the biggest like thing that I can say that would make it better was, sometimes you get problems, and instead of trying to break it down into like the simplest basic parts and elements, you kind of like overthink it and try to look for everything around it instead of trying to like looking for the simple solution that's like just so accessible. And many times that was actually the easiest way to fix it. Like we actually spent maybe, what was it, 2 or 3 hours one night on a segue because our segue was like screwing up the whole app. And every time we made like storyboard changes, it was like the segue that was the problem. And we just realized at some point, we got to start from the simplest solutions and just like working backwards. So, it was great to also feel like an engineer because like we thought about this stuff and we even created a workflow. Like we had a chart on whimsical.com and we had like a workflow just putting into like, I guess, almost paper, this idea that was in our brain. And I mean, obviously we didn't come up with every idea on our own, but like all these ideas came together and exactly the way that we wanted to build it from start is exactly the way that we built it in the end, which is pretty awesome. Because I think the hardest thing to do was actually having that page where one box, one text field, this page basically, one text field for like each page. Like it seemed to be challenging, but once we figured out that view container, figuring out how to have the view controller control the several storyboards, it was like magic. That's it. If you want to add anything, Cece, jump in.
I was just going to say that I think this build week went a lot better, but it was also very different from how we have been approaching like projects, because we go through a guided project, an afternoon project, and someone is there to like hold our hand occasionally. But this time it was like on our own. We actually had to sit down and think like engineers, like how are we going to build this from scratch? So that was kind of a different experience for me. And like I actually had to like force myself to think in like workflows and how it operates. So that was a little bit scary, but all in all, I'm thankful for Mark being there and like helping me like position everything and see it through.
Awesome. I loved this presentation, you guys. This looked awesome. I love the UI. Donovan commented on this. The progress bar was really neat as it kind of went through and scrolled. That was really awesome. I don't know who did that or if you guys did that together, but that looked really sharp.
That was me. That was my favorite part, actually.
That looked great. Well, and it's like, once you guys have experience doing this one time, you can do it in all your apps going forward, and that's such an awesome tool to take with you. So I am super proud of you both for this. This looks really, really great. It was funny. I could get Mark's energy out of it as you were describing how the app was working. I think all of you guys saw this, but like Mark and Cece were like in it for this project. They loved this project. It maybe wasn't their idea, but they came here ready to perform and show, and they were really passionate about it. And honestly, I'm not one to like be a professional on this because I'm not like a hired developer. I don't know anything about recruiting, but as an interviewer, if I saw this and that kind of energy from someone showing me what their passion is and what they built, I would be way more motivated to bring them on and hire them and know more about them. So the energy that you guys brought was awesome. The app looked really great. It was fun to watch. I'm curious about, did you pass, as far as passing each string, did you guys just pass that to the next view, or how did that work?
So we used an array, and every time you hit the done button, every time you hit the button underneath the text field, it actually appends it to the array. Simple stuff, huh?
Then did you guys just use map to kind of like place those into their specific spots in the template, or how did that go about?
Even simpler. We had the template and we string interpolation.
Genius. It works. It does the job. Great. Cool. Well, and that's the other thing too, is like going forward, you guys will come back to this and be like, I bet we can do this in a different way. I bet we can do this in a more simple way. And so it's fun to come back to these things for sure and reapply them for different use cases. Great job, guys. It looks awesome. So good work. Just to kind of wrap up here, guys, we're really proud of your hard work. I'm speaking on behalf of me and Hayden and Jonah, but also I'm sure the instructors that are in a separate demo meeting right now, but we're really proud of your hard work. 4 days is not a long time to build a fully functional app, let alone work with other developers in a back end and flesh out lots of functionality. So if you're not fully there yet, that's okay, because there were plenty of times where I had built apps and didn't have them in a working functional spot by the time that I wanted them to. I've been in past build weeks, and that was the case for a lot of teams. So don't feel like you have to tear yourself.
Been there.
Yeah, Jonah's
I've
been
been
there. Been there. I've been there. Like, it's part of being a programmer. It's part of having deadlines and kind of getting that pressure to work towards something that you don't think that you can. And the reason that we do that is because we want to really see you perform, and we want to see what you know. That's just the best way to assess your knowledge, is to put you in a situation like this. So if your app isn't fully there yet, keep working on it. We'd love to see it work out, and I want to see kind of the end result. I will say this: there were a couple presentations today that were fantastic. There were a couple that I was extremely disappointed in. And the point being is that I let you guys know about this about a week ago. And so you guys were fully capable and aware of that you were going to have to present today at this time. Some of you didn't come. Some of you didn't let me know that you're going to miss. Some of you weren't prepared. And I don't want to see that happen again. And you guys saw that there were some great presentations. And those of you who didn't have great ones, you know who you are. And next time, don't let that be the case, because the whole premise of Lambda School is not only to help you learn how to program and be a better coder, but we want to get you a job. And the way that that's going to happen is you taking this seriously and you showcasing your presentation skills and your interpersonal skills, and that you can prepare for something that's maybe unrelated to a project and just being able to show off something. So I think those of you, you know who you are. I'm bummed, and I wish I would have seen something different from you. Not necessarily that your apps weren't fully fleshed out, but just the presentation was weak, and I was sad, and I was expecting a lot more from you. Those of you that did present well, fantastic job. I am super proud of you, and it looked great. And going forward here for the weekend, there are a couple of you that I've chatted with as far as like your flex options. I think if you're unaware if you are in that circumstance or not, please feel free to DM me. But those of you who are potentially looking to flex, I've let you know that for sure. If you are seriously not wanting to flex and you want to move forward, and you have a pending sprint challenge that's not being passed off quite yet, spend the weekend to get that up to date. Try to do that by Sunday for sure. And then keep in tandem in touch with me and your TLs, and we'll keep that, figure that out for you as well. Before we close out for the day, does anyone have any other comments, concerns, questions, any shout outs that you want to give?
I think everyone did a really good job seeing everyone's projects. I was actually impressed with every single one of them. I guess because coming from my own sense, it seemed like World War III for me this whole week. But yeah, really good job, guys.
Amen. Like, good hard work. And the other thing too, I was proud to see even those of you who didn't have like your fully fleshed out app that you wanted to have shown today. I got to see your code, and I got to see your hard work and the implementation of it all. And I commend you for that. That's hard stuff. You spent a really long, hard week working through those, and I'm proud of you for sure. So good work, guys. Okay, awesome. If you have sprint challenges to work on those. If you have stuff to still work on your build week project, work on those. Otherwise, you guys are good to go. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See ya.